Okay, thank you. I think a very good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to actually have you here for the World Union of Wounding Societies webinar series. It's an ongoing series which will carry on to 2028 and hopefully carry on longer even after that. So we have got international speakers basically for different countries presenting on different types of advanced wound therapies, modalities, algorithms, consensus documents, best practice across the world. I send the best regards from the World Union Society's Executive Board and the Education Committee, which is the main committee chairing the sessions, and also from the International Wound Healing Foundation and the Malaysian Society of Wound Care Professionals. It's a pleasure actually here to have Insan Bhakti supporting this with Loma Rosha and what do you call this, Mr. Jason Francis Rosas, who is actually the medical trainer for Loma Rosha for Southeast Asia, to be here for this session. Now, this webinar series is very important. As I always mention, education is truly crucial. And education is actually a very important tag line that we use. Now, we will start off basically today's session looking at lymphedema management. Now, lymphedema management is a very difficult, what do you call this, way of management and all that, even for the past 30 years. And we find that not many people are actually well versed in that, especially in terms of managing it medically, surgically, and also basically with advanced bandagings and all that. So we hope with this session today that you will actually get sufficient knowledge and enlightenment from Jason, who will be presenting on lymphedema management and who has a lot of experience in this section. So with that, I would like to thank the sponsors, thank Andres Fodi and everyone else for allowing us to continue on with our education session. Now, Jason Francis Roxas is actually an affiliate consultant lymphedema nurse specialist at St. Luke's Medical Center, Global City, Cancer Institute, an affiliate consultant lymphedema nurse specialist at Victor R. Potenciano Medical Center in the Philippines. So I would like to welcome Jason and give you the floor. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you very much, Dato Harry, for the kind introduction. Congratulations to the World Union of Wound Healing Societies for another successful education webinar. And good afternoon or good morning to wherever you may be. Personally, it's good afternoon from the Philippines. So please allow me to share my screen. Okay, so our topic for this afternoon will be, as Dato Harry already mentioned, the management of lymphedema and lymphatic disease. So unfortunately, this is not a very popular disease that we find in everywhere in the world. Unfortunately, despite it not being popular, there are actually a very high percentage of patients suffering from lymphedema and lymphatic disease. So for this afternoon's presentation, I hope to present with you a basic definition of lymphedema, also the differentiation between primary and secondary lymphedema, basic assessment tools, and of course, an overview of the management for lymphatic disease. Okay, moving on to lymphatic disease. So the lymphatic system is actually a specialized system or network of vessels. Contrary to popular belief, the lymphatic system is more of a transport system rather than a true circulatory system. And some of the main functions of the lymphatic system would be, of course, to maintain fluid balance. And in some cases, though, it's also responsible for making sure that the peripheries or even the central circulation are free from edema and swelling. So these are some photos of my patients who I previously treated with lymphedema. So we can see here that, again, contrary to popular belief, now lymphedema is not located in the extremities alone. So the first two photos will show you the classic examples of lymphedema for the leg and for the arm. However, we can also have central lymphedema, in this case in the breast, and there's also some swelling in the neck area. For this particular patient, you also have a brachial plexopathy that was associated with her previous cancer treatment. And unfortunately, this is very under-recognized, but I'm starting to see a lot of patients with this concern. No? So we also have some scrotal lymphedema. So usually for scrotal lymphedema, I find this in patients who are undergoing dialysis or in patients with prostate cancer or with some patients who are severely obese. So there are a lot of definitions for lymphedema as a disease, but across all these definitions, we often find that lymphedema is progressive, it's chronic, and it is underdiagnosed. So this, of course, is one of the textbook examples of lymphedema. This is a more advanced case. This is also an advanced case of lymphedema. And similar to the first two photos, this is another advanced case of lymphedema for the leg, no? But when we're talking about advanced cases of lymphedema, you see that I classify the first two photos as advanced, even if the swelling is not that apparent. So if we were to stage the first two photos using the International Society of Lymphology classification, so this would already be classified as a late stage 2 lymphedema, not really because of how big the arm is or not really how big the leg is, but primarily because of the underlying skin changes that are present in these cases. So lymphedema is more than just what you see outside, but more importantly, we have to be cognizant of the underlying pathophysiologic uh, dysfunctions under the skin. All of these chronic inflammation that is really characteristic of lymphedematous extremities. So very broadly, we have two main classifications of lymphedema. You have either a primary lymphedema or secondary lymphedema. Primary lymphedema, of course, is characterized by congenital malformations or could also be some genetic dysfunctions in the patient. No, while secondary lymphedema is more from resulting from acute injury, damage to lymphatic structures, or a derangement in the transport capacity of the lymphatic system. Globally, primary lymphedema affects 1 in 100,000 individuals. So this is, of course, much less than the incidence of secondary lymphedema, which is 1 in 1,000 individuals. For primary lymphedema, there's a lot of ongoing research regarding some pharmacologic interventions, specifically regarding the VEGF3 inhibitors and also some Foxconn inhibitors. But for secondary lymphedema, I'm happy to report that we already have a recognized protocol worldwide in dealing with secondary lymphedema. So for primary lymphedema, you can further subdivide it as congenital lymphedema, lymphedema precox, less than 35 years old, in onset, or lymphedema tarda. The onset starts later than age 35. For secondary lymphedema, we have venous disease, obesity, metastatic disease, treatment-related obstructions. Previously, it was recognized that the number one cause of secondary lymphedema was actually filariasis. Now, with the current updates to our knowledge base, so we already recognize venous disease as the number one cause of secondary lymphedema. So personally, in my practice, I see a lot of venous disease and also cancer-related lymphedema, especially breast cancer-associated lymphedema. There are, of course, some early signs of lymphatic swelling. So you have the swelling, the discomfort. Very common is that the patients feel that one sleeve of her shirt is usually tighter than the other sleeve, or the watch doesn't fit. No, so those are some very early signs of lymphedema. You also have some beginning skin changes. You can have some atrophy blanch. You can also have some pitting, depending on the stage of your early lymphedema. For the late signs of lymphedema, these are, of course, the more frank, the more overt signs. You have your hyperkeratosis. You have your papillomatosis. For papillomatosis, in more advanced cases, it's quite common that I see both fine and coarse papillomatosis. So, coarse papillomatosis is what you normally refer to as a frog spawn. So it looks like little frogs' eggs, either on the skin of the tissue, or on between the toes or between the fingers. No, so these are very late signs of chronic lymphedema. Definitely, there will be some swelling, changes in shape. So I'd like to focus your attention on the photo in the middle. So you can already see a leg that is, of course, quite big, but more importantly, it's already misshapen. So you can see a very deep skin fold between the ankles and above the ankle. And this presents a difficult challenge, especially when we're trying to bandage these patients. So we have to do a special technique whenever we bandage misshapen legs or misshapen arms. It's possible that you can also have some lymphangiectasia, and associated with lymphangiectasia, you can also have some lymphocutaneous fistulas. So lymphocutaneous fistulas, these are points in the leg or in the arm, in the swollen leg or in the swollen arm that leak clear fluid. So a lot of patients, they come to me in their late stage of lymphedema, and one of their common concerns is that they have a massive leg, and together with that massive leg, you also have a lot of weeping fluid. Not really exudate, because the characteristic of the fluid is actually clear and odorless. No? But essentially, this is your lymphatic fluid that makes a break in the skin, trying to find a way out. So that's why later in the presentation, you'll also see the importance of dealing with some of these fistulas, with some of these exudates, with some of these skin changes that can be associated with lymphedema. And correct, no, also some wounds that can be associated with lymphedematous extremities. And of course, our very, very ever-present sign about the lymphedema is the chronic inflammation under the skin, leading to cellulitis or a predisposition to cellulitis or erysipelas. So for Lohmann and Rauscher, we are proud to say that we are not just a wound care company, we're actually a solutions provider. So this first slide would show you the different solutions we have in dealing with the lymphatic disorders for patients with wounds. So we have solutions all the way from your debridement up to your dressings, primary and secondary dressings, and of course, all the way to the maintenance phase. So these are some of the products that we offer. We have different product offerings in the market to deal specifically with the decongestive phase of lymphedema, where there may be wounds and exudate that compound the healing process of our patients. Okay. In essence, one of the things that we would like is to compress the limb. So when we compress the limb, when we compress the limb, we apply external pressure on both the lymphatic and the venous system. The goals of our compression therapy would be to improve the blood flow, to prevent and reduce the edema, and also to improve the drainage of the interstitial fluid back towards the systemic circulation. So this is, of course, in addition to the different mechanical, the biochemical factors that accompany a compressed leg. So there are a lot of benefits that compression can give. And this is not something that's coming just from me, but we actually have several recognized guidelines that really tell us how important compression is. So first of all will be our guiding society for lymphology. We have the International Society of Lymphology. In the latest Congress, we released the new consensus document, still stating that compression garments alone have been successfully used for patients, particularly in breast cancer-related lymphedema, and also as a preventive strategy in really preventing the onset of more frank and overt later stage lymphedema. Aside from this, the International Society of Lymphology also recommends the use of a multi-layer bandage wrapping. And this multi-layer concept is something that we will keep on repeating later because this goes beyond what was taught to us in our medical school or in our nursing school. We also have the American Lymphedema Framework consensus document stating that compression garments can be used for at-risk patients or those patients who are in stage 0 lymphedema, subclinical lymphedema. But for more advanced stages of lymphedema, then compression garments are indispensable. In fact, the American Lymphedema Framework recognizes compression as the component of treatment with the greatest impact on minimizing hospitalizations, particularly those hospitalizations due to cellulitis or erysipelas. And this is one of the newer documents that I came across in our research. So we have the European Wound Management Association releasing a guideline on the management of chronic edema of the lower limb. So this was released, I believe, in November of 2025. So stating that compression therapy is the cornerstone of chronic edema management with or without a wound, and they recognize compression therapy as the gold standard of the treatment plan. However, despite the recommendations of several international accredited organizations, there is still a need for us to train uh, medical practitioners on how to do our bandaging. Because as we saw from our previous pictures, there are some lymphedema patients that present a more challenging bandaging case. So for treating lymphatic disease, complete decongestive therapy is the gold standard in conservative management of lymphedema. So when you say complete decongestive therapy, you mean skincare, compression therapy, remedial exercises, and manual lymph drainage. So complete decongestive therapy is the gold standard in the conservative management of lymphedema, and this is true even in countries where there are more advanced microsurgical procedures that can help with lymphedema. So for example, in the Philippines, we already have axillary node dissection, we have a lymphovenous anastomosis, an LVA. We also have, of course, the debulking, conservative debulking treatment for patients with lobular lymphedema. So despite having these microsurgical techniques available, we still, as much as possible, would like to do complete decongestive therapy first to get maximal decrease. And in those patients where complete decongestive therapy is lacking or not enough, then that's the time we can consider the more invasive procedures. And out of these four modalities that are part of complete decongestive therapy, compression therapy is, of course, our main product offering for Lohmann and Rauscher. So earlier we were talking about the multi-layer bandage system and its role in lymphatic disease management and also in venous leg ulcer management. So our first layer, of course, is our protection layer, where essentially it is a liner that is designed to protect the skin from friction with the bandages and also to absorb any excess sweat and prevent maceration. So we have two particular offerings. We have a TG tubular. This is a high cotton percentage tubular bandage where it is seamless and you use it as the first layer of treatment, first layer in compression bandaging. Our second product offering will be TG Grip, which is a tubular support bandage. So from the name itself, grip, so we are talking about a product that is a bit more compressive than your tubular bandage. It is made with a higher cotton concentration. And what's nice about TG Grip is that you have a multi-role capability. You can use it for lymphedema. You can also use it for sprains. You can also use it as a dressing fixation, particularly because it grips quite well and it has a very light compressive property. Our second layer would be the foam bandages. So our Rosidal Soft. Our Rosidal Soft is a polyurethane foam. One of the things that make it different compared to, let's say, a cast padding is the fact that Rosidal Soft evenly distributes pressure and you compensate for minor imperfections in bandaging technique. So for the previous photo that we saw where there was an indentation in the separating the ankle from the area above the ankle and also at the foot. So if you do not use a filler product like Rosidal Soft, then the tendency is for your bandages to all pool in that depression at the ankle. So Rosidal Soft is a padding material that will distribute pressure very evenly. And finally, we talk about the actual compression products. So you have your Rosidal K and your Molilast. So when talking about actual compression, this is your Rosidal K bandage. We are actually talking about two different types of pressure. No? Your resting pressure and your working pressure. So your resting pressure is the pressure of your bandage when your patient is resting, while your working pressure is the pressure of your bandage when the patient is working or moving or exercising. And for lymphatic disease, we would like a low resting pressure and a high working pressure, meaning your Rosidal K will rest when your patient is resting, but the Rosidal K is also working when your patient is most active. And by having this kind of bandage properties, you have a positive effect on your calf muscle pump. You have a positive effect also on your arterial and venous flow, and you have a positive effect on edema. And these effects are something that you will not find in your ordinary long stretch bandages. So Rosidal K is a short stretch bandage with a positive effect on edema, on lymphatic flow, and on blood flow also. So as a solution for more narrow areas, we have your Molilast elastic conforming bandage. So these are bandages that we use particularly for the fingers and for the toes. We can also use it for the head and sometimes for the difficult areas like the scrotum, whenever we want to get rid of swelling or edema in these areas. Solutions also comprise of a packaged compression set, whereby you have a system that you just grab and go. So if you have one patient come into the clinic, just grab one box and all of your materials are already there. We also have a two-component system, which is our Rosidal TCS. So this is a combination of your Rosidal Soft, which is your padding compression, and also you have your main compressive bandage, which is your Rosidal CC, which is your cohesive compression. Of course, the advantage of this is that you simply stretch it 100% when you apply on the patient. No need for indicators because of the Safe Lock technology. So the Safe Lock technology makes it a lot easier to keep the bandage in place for up to 7 days. Rosidal TCS will take the place of two separate or three separate components and instead condense it into two components, thus making sure that the patient will be able to wear footwear going to work. So this is the power of your Rosidal TCS. So just as a summary for our multi-layer bandage solutions, our first layer will be our protection layer, either the TG tubular bandage or a TG grip bandage, which is more tighter. Second layer will be our padding. You have your Rosidal Soft. Third layer will be Rosidal K or Molelast. Fourth layer will be our retention products, which is your Molelas Haft or TG Fix, which is a net bandage. And we also have all-in-one products like your Rosidal Cis and your Rosidal TCS. So to recap, for your active lymphedema where you are in the acute phase, we would like to use as much as possible multi-layer compression bandages. However, once the reduction in swelling has already been achieved, that does not signal that the treatment is already done because there is a high tendency for lymphatic disease to recur. In a similar way, with the updates to the CEAP classification of venous disorders, there is already C6R, meaning a recurrent active leg ulcer. So for both venous leg ulcers and lymphedema, it's important that we progress to the transition and maintenance phase in order to make sure that there will be no repeat swelling and no recurrence of the venous leg ulcers. And the next two products that I'll show you can actually help both lymphatic disease and venous leg ulcers in the transition and maintenance phase. So first will be our Venosan 6000 compression stockings. What makes it different from the others is that we have a compression that is not just guaranteed, but also tested. So we have a RAL classification, which guarantees the exact pressure distribution gradient along the leg and along the arm. We have an Ecotex certification, which certifies that our products are basically hypoallergenic, free from harmful products that may affect our health. The Venosan 6000 is anatomically knitted, and you can see this particularly in the shape of the stockings at the ankle and at the heel, and also at the toes, where it's a lot more comfortable. Venosan 6000 can also be machine washed, and there is a free slider that accompanies Venosan 6000 open toe, so making it easier for our patients to be compliant with our therapy. Our last solution for the maintenance and transition phase will be an adjustable compression wrap, which is something I personally use a lot in my practice. So we have Ready Wrap as a solution. It comes in different presentations for the thigh, for the calf, for the knee, for the arm, and for the foot. So Ready Wrap is pre-curved which is very good because it fits the leg anatomically. You also have a support spine. And one of the things that I would like to challenge you actually when you use it is that you will see built-in 50% overlapping straps, thus guaranteeing better compression. So ReadyWrap is also clinically proven, and we are backed up by many studies. And of course, before we end my presentation, I'd like to share with you some small case studies. Okay, I think we will go directly here comparing the different types of compression bandages. So for this study, they actually used three different short stretch bandages. But with Rosidal K, one of the most important things that they found out is that our resting pressure is lowest among the three short stretch bandages. And our working pressure is the highest among the other three compression bandages. That's why you can see a very statistically significant SSI or static stiffness index, which is really a very good measurement of how your bandage performs. So our SSI is 26.9 versus the competitors. I think I'll go directly to my cases. So these next few slides will be cases in my clinic. So this is a 34-year-old who presented with left ankle swelling that you can see started in May 2016. And you already have a very misshapen leg. So this is the result after only 8 sessions of using multi-layer bandaging. Very significant reduction in the size of the leg. This is a breast cancer patient with modified radical mastectomy. She had radiation therapy. A little difficult case because she had also thoracentesis and she had some breathing problems. She also had acute to subacute DVT. And she had 5 sessions of physical therapy with no benefit. So this is that same patient, still ongoing therapy. But after 6 sessions, we can see some marked reduction in the hand, in the forearm. We just have a little more to go in the upper arm. This is case number 3, another breast cancer-related patient, modified radical mastectomy with a history of cellulitis. This patient is unique because she used ordinary long stretch compression bandages 4 hours every day. And she did it for 1 week with no benefit. So for this patient, we have a very significant decrease again, all the way to the fingers, with only 5 sessions of multi-layer bandaging with Rosidal system. Case number 4, this is one of my earliest patients. She has ovarian cancer, resulting in her leg swelling. She had 12 sessions of intermittent pneumatic compression, the pneumatic pump, in Mindanao with very limited benefit. So actually for pneumatic compression, it caused more harm because this area at the groin, it formed into a sclerotic ring, no, because all the fluid was just pushed there by the compression pump. So we have this patient and this result after just 3 sessions of Rosidal K multi-layer bandaging. This is one of my patients from Papua New Guinea, 58 years old. He is overweight. He has no underlying disease. He just felt an insect bite a few days before his leg started to swell. But the insect bite is actually one of the immediate causes, no? But he already had swelling of the ankles for 4 years. No? But after the insect bite, it swelled to this size already. This is the same patient with the back view of the leg. Front view after 11 sessions. Back view, same patient after 11 sessions. So some marked reduction in his leg size. So no surgery was involved. And lastly, this is an interesting case of scrotal lymphedema. So you can see there's some maceration. Of course, the wound care was done by the patient themselves using old techniques. He's had progressive swelling with maceration at the inner thigh, managed very poorly. And this is our same patient. Of course, very, very significant reduction in scrotal and penile lymphedema. Only after 4 sessions using our TG fix, which is our net bandage. And these are my reference. I would also encourage our participants to view particularly our YouTube page, because we have a very good section there on how to do your compression bandaging for patients with leg lymphedema and arm lymphedema. Thank you very much for your patience and for your attention.
Thank you, Jason. A wonderful lecture. Basically, I liked all the pictures. Now,
Thank you, Dr. Harry.
one of the first questions, I think one of the first questions they were asking is, when you have what do you call this lymphedema, basically with bandaging ongoing, there were some you did 5, some you did 11 or that. Do they have to have prolonged bandaging, and up to what period?
Yes, so when we're dealing with patients with lymphedema, so it's important that these patients remain on compression bandages day and night. So of course, this would run counter to what we were previously taught, because when you have compression bandages, you're supposed to take them out at night. No. But this is precisely where Rosidal K and the short stretch bandages come into play. Because Rosidal K has less pressure when the patient is relaxed or when the patient is sleeping, then there's no risk of compressing the veins, and there's no risk of having any damage to the circulation.
Now, there's one case that you showed, basically the circumference of the foot, actually, I mean, of the calf became much better, is like back to normal. But do you still maintain the usage of multi-layer and Rosidal K for a period of time after that? I mean, is it recommended?
Yes, Dato. So initially, when we have a very good reduction in compression, so that's usually in size, sorry, that's usually our signal that we can transition to compression stockings or adjustable wraps. For this particular patient, I will just share this picture again, I think. Okay. So I believe it was this patient data, or so for this particular patient, we have some very good reduction. However, just for her case, I actually challenged her with one more week of multi-layer bandage instead of going directly to compression stockings. So I did a further week of challenge using bandages because of her previous history of rebound swelling. So once I was satisfied with the fact that her leg no longer had rebound swelling, so I actually put this patient on adjustable wraps and not compression stockings. Why is that? Because of the significant girth difference in the thigh versus the ankle. So your compression stockings may be a size double XL, can fit the thigh, but of course will be very loose at the cuff. So you will have a reverse compression gradient. No? So that's why in this case, I opted for using adjustable wraps to maintain her pressure gradient.
We have one more question here on how often do you change the compression bandaging and how long is each bandage usually kept on before reapplication, especially during the decongestive phase?
For the decongestive phase, if we actually go by the book, our handbook tells us that it's very important that we do the decongestive therapy every day for a period of 6 weeks. However, in 2014, I did a study on all my patients for 3 years. Now, it was a study composed of about, I believe, 200 patients, all my patients, and I tried to to see how many sessions is optimal. So from this study that I did in 2014, I found out that I can actually see patients 2 times a week. So normally every 3 days for replacement of her bandages and any change of dressing if there's an active wound. And very interesting, even if I deviated from our Bible, from our guidelines, even with a slight deviation, instead of treating them every day, I just saw them every 3 days. No, my clinic still had a 96% reduction in size of all patients, so very high reduction. And this is a study that I presented in the US. No? And now, in certain states in the US, they are also seeing patients less. So sometimes they see the patients every 2 days or every 3 days, depending, of course, on the need. But I would stress um, if you want to do this system where you see patients after 2 days or after 3 days, then it would be imperative that the patient or the relative know how to do the bandages at home, because it's not enough that they come to me on, let's say, a Monday, then we bandage, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, they have no bandage. So that's not possible. No? So we have to teach them how to do their bandaging at home so that they are perpetually in bandages for up to a few weeks.
Thank you. The other thing is, in a case where no significant improvement is observed after 1 week of compression therapy with the bandage, how would you proceed?
Okay. For in cases where there are no significant improvement, just as a background though, I use as a gauge for improvement not just the size decrease but also the texture of the skin. So in terms of the texture of the skin, if for example I have patients that still have a tough, very fibrotic skin, what I would do is I would replace Rosidal K, I would replace Rosidal Soft, which is our padding bandage. I would replace it with a textured bandage. For LNR, we have a product that we call Comprex, which is a foam bandage, but it's ridged. So it almost looks like a spaghetti foam. So there are ridges in these bandages that are specifically designed to work with fibrotic tissue. If, for example, I have very poor reduction in size, so what I would do is I would first increase the frequency of patient visits. Second, I would examine how well this patient bandages at home. Is her bandaging technique too loose? Is the bandaging technique improper? Or does the patient take off her bandages at night? So in this case, I can shift to either the adjustable wraps for cases of poor bandaging technique, adjustable wraps like your Ready Wrap. So they are a better alternative than compression bandages for some patients because they have the same short stretch characteristic. But since they only have Velcro, so you only have to tighten specific sections to achieve the pressure gradient. For some patients who fail to reduce because of the factors that I mentioned, I would still try to see them as much as possible. And if it's a really difficult case, we can either proceed to a lymphoscintigram, which is a nuclear medicine diagnostic modality that will give you a good view of the lymphatic structure of the lymphatic vessel. And once we see that there is still an obstruction in after the lymphoscintigram, then we can consider them for a maybe a lymphovenous anastomosis.
Okay, thanks. There's one more from Nigeria. When the patient has got open wounds, do you still leave compression for 7 days?
Oh, for open wounds, definitely no. I try to see the patient as frequently as possible, depending, of course, on the exudate level. No, if I'm more confident that the primary dressings that I put in are sufficient to absorb the exudate, then perhaps I would leave my patient for maybe 2, 3 days, but I'd still have to see her not more than 3 days.
Okay, thank you. And you have, I think, a last question here. How do you educate patients regarding long-term management?
Thank you for that question. That's actually a very, very important question. Um, we saw from the previous slide that complete decongestive therapy has 4 components, no? Skincare, exercise, compression therapy, and the lymphatic drainage. However, for me, I define compression therapy as define complete decongestive therapy as having a fifth component, no? Which is self-care. So lymphedema is a lifelong condition, and one of the most important strategies to have long-term improvement will be to educate our patients and to encourage them to really be part of their treatment, because it's not feasible that these patients come see me every week for the rest of their lives, no? So in this case, upon the first consultation with patient, I encourage them to bring in a responsible um, relative or someone who stays with them at home, and I immediately teach them how to do compression bandaging. Second, at the first session, I also teach them how to do remedial exercises and skincare techniques. No? And when these patients graduate from seeing me, that's the time where I teach them a very, very basic course of lymphatic massage, no? To make sure that the lymphatics continue to drain as well as they should. And together with that, I still make it a point to see my old patients at least every 6 months, just to make sure that they're doing well.
Thank you very much, James. I think that's, I mean, Jason, sorry, that's a very good session, basically. We're quite happy, basically, with the usage of multi-layer bandaging. I think this is one of the things that you always have a problem, because even in Malaysia, usually sometimes you have physiotherapists looking after basically lymphedema, especially for central lymphedema. And I think physical therapists in the US also. So I think here will be better because, in terms of basically even together with wound management, we actually can have more paramedics and nursing teams to actually do a lot of this bandaging. So it'll be quite helpful for that. So thank you very much for your session. Uh, Greatly helpful. And I think my 60 students here sitting with me basically are quite happy also. They missed lunch just especially to be with you. So
Thank you
what do you
very
call that?
much, Dato Harry, for inviting me to share some of my experience, and thank you very much also to those who participated. And actually, if I may, Dr. Harry, my challenge then would be to the participants. So now you know more about lymphedema than maybe some of your colleagues. So it's up to you now to help to share this knowledge to your colleagues now for the benefit of our patients, of course.
Yes, I think they will do because they are now the 11th batch who have come for their post basic what do you call this management in wound care. So this will cover actually what we call is all the 14 states in the whole of Malaysia, and also some private centers and all that. There's 60 of them in a big group. So I think they really benefited from this session. Thank you again, and thank you to Insan Bhakti, Loman Rosha.
People, health,